So the Terence Crosbie case, the Dublin firefighter who's been convicted of rape in the US, it's continued to cause a lot of headlines, and there's been huge coverage both in this country and abroad, and his family are continuing to really strongly maintain his innocence. And we heard you had a piece in this weekend in the Sunday Indo about some of the testimonials that were submitted on his behalf.
Yeah, Niall, there was 88 character references, which is a huge amount. I mean, we'd never see that in this country.
Yeah.
I think DJ Kerry had 3, I believe.
Yeah.
But like, you wouldn't be allowed, like a judge here wouldn't take 88. But look, it's a different legal system entirely. So it was 88, including his wife, including his 2 daughters, age 8 and 15, including his parents, including his brother, including his uncle, other kind of cousins, family members, friends, members of the Dublin Fire Brigade, someone attached to the Capuchin Centre. I think an old primary school teacher was even kind of rolled out essentially in these. So it was a massive, like it took me ages to read them all.
Yeah.
You know?
And of course, these are submitted in the aftermath of his conviction and ahead of his sentencing, which has now been laid down in the court, and we'll come back to that. I mean, I suppose the nature of his crime is a crime that sparks horror on people, a rape in a hotel of a woman. Obviously, the references paint a totally different picture of his character. What do they say? And
entirely. Well, I suppose the ones that struck me the most, Niall, I suppose, were from his wife and 2 children, because they're the people who were impacted most by his sudden departure from their lives.
Yeah.
Of course, and it's look, you just have to feel sorry for people who were in no way involved.
Yeah.
In this whatsoever, and the impact on their lives, and look, that's not to minimize at all the impact on the woman at the centre of the case too, but particularly I think from the 2 daughters, just talking about how he is their hero, the centre of their family, the one that they turn to for support and love and guidance, and that he's suddenly just gone. And I think that must be very difficult for children to understand how someone can be there one minute and gone the next.
And of course it has to be. And his Terence Crosbie's wife appeared in court. I don't think she was there every day, obviously for obvious reasons, living in a different country, and kids to mind. But she's continued to support him throughout this. And they obviously believe him to be innocent. I mean, that comes across in what the family have said subsequently.
Entirely. Yeah, they entirely maintain his innocence, as he did, as he continues to do himself as well. And yeah, like his wife just kind of painted a picture of their life, their relationship. Like, I think they're together 22 years. They're from the same part of Dublin. They grew up together before they kind of began a romantic relationship. He was the main financial breadwinner in the house as a firefighter, and she kind of outlined, I suppose, the financial struggles of him now being gone. I suppose, as well as just the emotional struggles as well, and just how good of a man in her eyes that he is, how good of a husband, how good of a father, how important in the community is, and how important he is to his wider family. So it paints an entirely different picture, of some of the things we heard in court.
So if we go back to the court case, because people we obviously did a podcast on it after his conviction, but the essence of the case is that a group of firemen from Dublin Fire Brigade were over to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. They were going to appear in the march in Boston. They had a night out in a night out drinking ahead of it. One of the firemen was with a woman. He brought her back. He brought her back to the hotel room he was due to share with Terence Crosbie. Ultimately, that 2 of them fell asleep, and the woman says Terence Crosbie came into the hotel room later and she was raped.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard from her. She was on the stand. I don't know if you listened to the court.
I did,
TV,
yeah. The court, it was really good.
Yeah.
I saw both of their testimony, and I think they both gave very good testimony. Both of them, I thought they both expressed themselves very well. But yeah, like in terms of that night, look, they were out on the beer.
Yeah.
You know, this group of Irish firemen, they were over there. You know, they weren't there working, but they were there, I suppose, representing Dublin Fire Brigade, and they were due to march in the Paddy's Day parade. So it was like, I think Terence Crosbie himself described it in court as it was a social trip, really, but it was work related. So look, they were letting their hair down as many people do on these kind of trips, and they visited several bars that night. And Terence Crosbie himself had been speaking to a woman for a considerable amount of time in the last bar, and he admitted to kissing this woman and going outside with her. And then he came back in, and then eventually he went back to the hotel, as did his friend and colleague. Yeah, so I mean, I think that kind of thing painted Terence Crosbie in a very bad light, because, you know, he's supposed to be a family man. Why is he kissing other women in a bar? And like, I think even his own lawyer, even Mr. Riley, Daniel Riley, I think his name is, who spoke, I think, to both our newspapers over the last few weeks. You know, he said that his client does know that he has made some mistakes. And I think that's what he was referring to, was that his behaviour wasn't great that night. He was, you know, he was getting into an intimate situation with a woman that wasn't his wife, and that he had kind of regrets about that, and that his client needed to make changes in his life, and he accepted that. So yeah, what seems to have happened then is he went back to the hotel room that he was sharing, and then his friend came in with this woman. And when Terence Crosbie saw the two of them coming in, you know, he saw the writing. He saw the writing on the wall. Yeah. You know, they clearly were intended to have sex. It was late at night. That was it. So he went out immediately, he says, and sat outside on a chair for about 2 hours. I think he was just like scrolling on his phone. But like, he didn't attempt to go to any of his other friends' hotel rooms to see if he could sleep on the couch or anything like that. He just obviously thought, I'll just wait here for a while. And then after 2 hours, he went back in.
Yeah. And that is where the disputed accounts really come from. Everything that happens up to this point, there's no real controversy about it. In terms of, obviously, the incident, the kissing a woman, that's all on CCTV. Of course, that is... kissing a woman that's not your wife is there might be a moral issue there, but it's certainly not a criminal. It's not. No. That is.
But I think it was used in the case to reflect his character.
Totally.
So the character references are saying he's X, Y, and Z, and then this incident doesn't paint him in a great light.
No, but
look, it's unusual that something like that would maybe come to light in such a subsequent criminal case.
And obviously then the woman as well, the fact she had been drinking and all, that was also featured as so he comes back, he comes into the hotel room, and that's where the dispute exists. Now, one of the most complicated bits of this case, and really probably the bit that is slightly confusing, is the DNA that's recovered from that woman, because she leaves the hotel room later that night. She tells her friend what had happened. Ultimately, she goes to the police within a number of hours, and she's given a medical assessment.
Mm-hmm.
DNA samples are taken from her. They recover, obviously, a DNA sample of the Daniel Crosbie's roommate. Mm-hmm. Obviously, she'd been with that. Again, that's not controversial.
No, that was they both have said that was consensual sex. Yeah.
But there's a second DNA sort of profile recovered, but that doesn't ultimately prove to match Terence Crosbie. And it is a confusing bit of the case, I think, is it?
I think it is. And I listened again on Court TV earlier, tried to listen back to the medical expert explaining it. And I was still left a little bit confused. But essentially, it doesn't, the other male DNA profile does not say it was
Terence Crosbie.
No, it doesn't.
Now, there's confusion rises. I mean, in terms of is because of a lack of quality of the sample or whatever. But ultimately, it's fair to say that it's not Terence Crosbie's. That second profile does not match Terence Crosbie. That's just a fact.
Yeah, so that is the fact. So,
however, So Terence Crosbie, nonetheless, the jury, and this is the same of any case we cover on Crime World, a jury have listened to that whole case. They might be in America, but it's still 12 people have listened and they've unanimously convicted him.
They have, yeah.
And that, again, that's a fact. What happens to him now? I mean, he got a 7-year sentence, but I think he was in a holding sort of prison.
He was in it's called a county jail, which is basically not as difficult a regime as a state prison.
Yeah.
So he's now been transferred. I think it's the only maximum security state prison in Massachusetts, in Boston. And from speaking to his lawyer, you know, it's a tough jail.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be really difficult. He's going to be in there with serious, hardened criminals.
Yeah.
And he has to be assessed to discover to try and find the best place to house him within that, I suppose.
Yeah.
But that's going to be a huge change for him. So he spent 20 months, I think, in this county jail. And I think he appears to have gotten on quite well and did courses and all of it with the aim, I think, to be trying to get home to his family, you know, to be abiding by all the rules and be considered a model inmate, I suppose. But it was a much smaller facility. This new place is massive.
Yeah. And
it's maximum security.
Which would mean far greater restrictions on liberty, I would imagine, in terms of exercise and all of those things.
And I think the caliber, I suppose, of inmate, you'd be dealing with people who are
much more.
Yeah. Serious criminals, and you know.
So he's given, is it a 7-year sentence? Is it?
So I think, it was a maximum of 9, but he's essentially served 2.
Yeah.
So he's another 7.
Yeah.
Basically. But they've already lodged an appeal. They lodged an immediate appeal.
Now, because the appeal, like they lodged it, and his lawyer has spoken to us and to yourself, and you know, they seem to be determined that they're going to continue to fight.
Yeah, I mean, like, one thing that struck me that I was surprised by when speaking to his lawyer is that his lawyer was very much saying that he is, you know, believes in his innocence.
Yeah.
And they don't always necessarily go that far.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the time lawyers, you know, in Ireland as well as other countries will kind of say, well, it's my client's stance.
Yeah.
This is my client's stance. This is my, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas they seem to quite be very much behind him. They seem to be kind of backing him. And that was the really strange thing about that case. And I don't know, have you watched any of the court TV?
I did watch some of it.
It was fascinating. Yeah. Because it really came down to a he said, she said situation.
Yeah.
Because forensics did not prove that they had sexual contact.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It did not prove that. And it came down to then her version of events and his version of events.
Exactly.
And ultimately the jury listened to everything and found him unanimously guilty. But I listened to a lot of legal experts on that court TV, and in the run up to, like, after the jury were sent out, they were saying there's so many question marks here. Like there's so, like, they were kind of, it seemed like they were predicting that they will be very surprised, because they kept saying there is a reasonable doubt there, because there is.
Because of course it's the same. Ultimately, we come from the same legal roots, the US and Ireland, like a common law system in the UK, and you have to prove something beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, you know, we're watch a bit of it and you're not there, and of course, to give the balance to that is that a lot of cases involving sex crimes do come down to one person's word against another.
Yes,
know that. You know, that's not unheard of. I suppose a bit of the difference is that, you know, in America as well, that they have to have a unanimous verdict sometimes, and which they did achieve in this case, because there was a previous trial where the jury couldn't reach a verdict.
Jury, yeah.
Now, we've seen on social media in the aftermath, there certainly seems to be quite a lot of support remains out there for Terence Crosbie, and of course a lot of money was raised for his legal defence and ahead of the trial as well. For
sure, yeah. He seems to, like I say, 88 character witnesses. That kind of blew me away a bit.
Yeah.
You know, that level of support from people willing to put their names on paper, knowing that those names can be publicly accessed then. But yeah, I think there's huge public support, and there's a huge belief among some people that he's innocent.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's a huge belief among others that he's not.
Of course.
And it came down to the testimony and you know, the woman, the complainant, the victim now, because he's convicted, she gave very emotional and testimony that was ultimately accepted by the jury, I suppose, you know?
Yeah. And in terms of appealing, we don't, like, they've lodged an appeal, but we don't have any times or anything like that for it.
I think the attorney said to me in about 6 months, it's quicker than here, put it that way.
Yeah.
So in about 6 months, I think they'd be hoping to be kicking off proceedings yet again. But I mean, that's if an appeal is granted.
Yeah.
But I look, they're very confident that it will be, given this lack of, forensic, 100% forensic saying we have his DNA profile on the victim.
Yeah.
So, it's a done deal.
Well, we'll come back to it then, Ali, when we do hear more. There's been huge interest in the case. And what do you think of, I suppose on a side issue, like you sat down, I watched some of it as well on Court TV. Do you think it's something we should bring in Ireland? What's your feelings on it? I mean, I know
Court TV?
Yeah, well, because, I mean, I don't know, I presume that's a company, is it? That film it?
I think so.
Yeah. But they're obviously allowed to sit in the court, and you obviously the victim, the woman, you don't see her face, but you hear her voice.
But you could, like, that's because she chose to remain anonymous. But obviously, look, it's a totally different legal system over there. But she did choose; she could have chosen not to, and then we would have seen her face when she was giving her testimony. But
do you think it's something we should bring in here? Would you be in favour of it?
I would be in favour of it. It would mean I could.
But it'd be hard to imagine a journalist would not be in favour.
Well, I could stay at home rather than having to go into the CCJ. But that would help.
But it is really interesting, isn't it? When you see it, of course, you do get a different perspective on it. We have
really do. Yeah,
I think we have started showing some of the Supreme Court judgments. I think were televised in Ireland. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, right.
It's only the judges reading them out.
Yeah.
I can't see it happening in here. Can you?
I can't see it happening anytime. I mean, I can't even get phone coverage in the CCJ, for example. It doesn't seem to work. But I'd say eventually we might get there. But it really brings the story to, it really does beam it around the world, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, like reading a news article about Terence Crosbie doesn't have the same impact as being able to watch and listen to him, and and to really see who he is.
Yeah.
You can't reflect that in a newspaper story, or in a radio report or in a podcast.
Yeah.
It's really hearing and seeing someone in their own words.
Yeah.
It just hits differently. So I mean, look, I'd be all for it.
Yeah. But I wouldn't be betting my mortgage that it's going to happen.
Certainly not. Yeah.
Okay, Ali, we'll come back to the story.
Cheers.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Niall.
Thanks.
I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.